Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the channel. I'm that Mopar Racing guy, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about why I bought the Hellcat Redeye. So, quick background, I've not always been into cars and driving fast and all that stuff. All growing up, my dream car was a fully loaded Ford Ranger. I wanted to get into off-roading, so I had like off-road vehicles. I had a Grand Cherokee, 2 Grand Cherokees, a couple of Rangers, lift kits, mud tires, that kind of stuff. I'm still into that, but after I graduated college, I celebrated by buying myself a car, and I wanted to get a luxury import because I'm a college graduate now, and I thought that that would be cool. Whatever, it's silly, but that's what I was thinking at the time. So I was driving these old, slow V6 things with big tires, and they were even slower with the big tires. And I went and I test drove a BMW X3, and it was like night and day. And something happened on that day where I was just ripping around town, driving fast in my BMW, and I was pretty much the stereotypical BMW driver. I went through a few cars after that. I bought a used Range Rover Sport with the supercharger, and I just kept getting, into this fast car thing. I eventually tried to take my Range Rover to the track because I thought that would be fun and it would let me legally drive fast. But it turns out a lot of track outfits won't let SUVs race, and rightfully so. So fast forward a few years, I'm still pondering this I want to get a fast car thing, and I didn't know what to get. So, this whole world of fast cars is new to me. So I start looking at, again, imports, because that's where my mind was at the time. I was looking at the Mercedes E-Class and a couple of BMW M cars. Used, of course, everything's just silly expensive. So I started test driving these cars. I was using Turo, and I was driving them around, and I don't know, they're amazing machines, but they don't feel special. And I was looking at the price tags, and I'm thinking, man, this is a lot of money, and you don't get a lot of performance for that money. Dollar for dollar, you can go buy something else and go just as fast. So am I buying a sports car? Am I buying a daily car? Am I buying both? I didn't know. I'm still learning this whole thing. So I moved on to try to buy a sports car. I started test driving full-on sports cars. I test drove 2 or 3 Vets from Turo. I test drove a Jaguar F-Type, a couple others, and I don't know, they're not comfortable. I feel like you compromise a lot to get a full-on sports car. So then, I think I had my mind set up on the E63 wagon because I thought it was special. I thought it was fun. It's got a great 0 to 60 time. You can get an E55 wagon. They're pretty awesome, and they don't break the bank. And then in 2018, Dodge came out with the wide-body Hellcat. Before that, Dodge wasn't even on my radar. I didn't really like the square body Challengers. I thought that they were a little plain. But when they put the flares on this thing, it just changed the whole look. I was addicted. So I went back to Turo, my handy-dandy rental company, and I rented a Hellcat. It was a square body Hellcat, or narrow body, or whatever. But I wanted to see what the Hellcat was like. And when I drove that thing, it was instant love for that car. I could spin the back tires, I could drive like a total hooligan, and I never felt unsafe. The weight of the vehicle, when you're spinning the back tires and getting loose and looking like a badass to all your friends, you're never out of control. The stereotype of these cars is they're a boat. Well, when you're spinning the back tires, it almost is like a boat, because nothing you do on the water, most things you do on the water don't jerk the boat into the dock. You kind of just go with the flow and pilot with the rudder. Well, that's what it's like when you're spinning the tires and getting crazy. But the added bonus of the Challenger wide body is that it actually handles pretty well. Having driven all those full-on sports cars, now of course it doesn't handle as good as a Corvette Z06, I mean obviously, but does it handle as good as an M5? I think that's debatable. If you go and you look at the lap times from these professional drivers and reviewers, they're pretty close. The M5 and the Challenger Hellcat, pretty doggone close. And the comfort you get in this thing, these leather seats, the automatic climate control, heated and cooled seats. Right now I'm sitting in eco mode, just cruising down the road because I'm not trying to drive fast today. And it's a comfortable ride. It's nice and quiet, even though I've got muffler deletes. I mean, this is just a killer cruiser car. And I knew I had to have it. Now, in 2018, they had the wide body Hellcat, 707 horsepower. And that was it. I actually put in a factory order for the 707 Hellcat in 2018. I did some dumb things. The money I was going to use to buy that car, I ended up buying a stupid Grand Cherokee. It was probably the dumbest purchase I've ever made in my life, but I got the money burning a hole in my pocket, and I just jumped on that Grand Cherokee, and it was dumb, but whatever, it's gone now. So I couldn't get it in 2018. I had to cancel my order. In 2019, I was actually rewarded because that's when they came out with the Redeye, and the Redeye had 797 horsepower. Now, I was ready to buy right then, but I was kind of in hot water with my wife over the Grand Cherokee debacle, so I had to wait. I sat and I waited, and then the rumors of the Challenger ACR started popping up, and I was like, you know, I don't know, maybe I should wait for the ACR. But the ACR never came. Now, in the meantime, because I wanted this Challenger bad, and even though the square body Challengers were not my favorite, my wife at least signed on to let me get a used SRT8. It was only like $22,000. I went and picked it up. It was a lot of fun. 485 horsepower. It was amazing. I actually have some videos on my channel of that car, taking it to the track, racing with my friend in his 350R Shelby Mustang. Check him out, the All-American Driver on YouTube. He's awesome. So I really got into this track racing thing. I've been like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, man, I really want to get into track racing. I really want to get the best car I can and start working on it. But I didn't want to, start putting mods into a car that wasn't the best. I wanted the best version of this car. I don't think they're going to make a car like this ever again. So I really just think that this generation Challenger is the best muscle car we will ever see. We're going to start getting into regulations with emissions and fuel economy. Even Dodge themselves has said they're going to electric motors in the future. And even though objectively they will be faster, 0 to 60, they will be faster around a track, I think that they don't capture what a muscle car is. So I wanted to get this generation Challenger the best I can and drive it for as long as I can. So I started my search. I was planning to order a 2020 Redeye from the factory. We have Dave Smith Dodge up here in Idaho, and they give you great deals. And I had actually sent a build request to them, and I was planning to give them the deposit and pull the trigger and everything. It was all set up. The wife had greenlit it. I was ready to go. And then, miraculously, out of nowhere, one of my Auto Trader searches pops up and says, there's a car, an orange Hellcat Redeye, down in Portland. Maybe take a look. So I started looking at it. I did the VIN research. This car, when I went down to get it, it had 4,000 miles on it. The previous owner had kept it in storage for most of the time, but had a great maintenance record on it. It had a few modifications, like a clear bra on it, had a couple of racing stripes that I took off. I didn't like them. And I think that's it. Oh, he had some of these red, these things here. I don't like them, but they're in the car and they work, so whatever. 4,000 miles on this thing, 1 year old, mostly garage kept, and they were asking $72,000 for it. Now, an MSRP fully loaded Challenger like this is pushing 90 before the Dodge dollars rebate. So, was that $18,000 off MSRP? I went down and looked at it. I talked up my trade a little bit. I got $1,000 extra on that. I know negotiations, you never win, but you know, you get what you can. And I talked them down $1,000 on this car, and out the door with my trade-in, I ended up picking this up for $800 a month are my payments, and it is perfect. I told my wife on the phone when I went down to look at it, I said, look, this has every option except for one as I would have built it from the factory. Same color, same satin black hood, everything. It even has some things I wouldn't have got, like the leather seats and all the fancy options, because I was just going to build a bare bones Challenger. So she said, look, you know, I told her, look, if we're going to get this Challenger, this is the way to do it. It's not going to get any cheaper than this, exactly like I wanted. So we did it. It was an impulse buy, but it was an educated impulse buy. So here I am, 2019 Challenger. It's going to be my track car. It's going to be my weekend toy. I know it doesn't fit the track car stereotype that well. I probably could have done certainly could have done much better if I had bought a Corvette or a GT350R or a ZL1 1LE. But those cars, like I said, they didn't have the comfort I wanted. And I am fully convinced that this car is a wolf in sheep's clothing. In a straight line, it's awesome. It dominates. Of course, you know, if you can hook at the track, then amazing. I mean, hook at the drag strip, it's awesome. In a roll race, it's awesome. At the track, people give it crap. So, here are my thoughts about track use in a Challenger. Bare bones, it's almost as fast as an M5. People will tell you, reviewers and stuff, an M5 is an awesome track car. It is the ultimate super sedan or super coupe or whatever. So, on one hand, the Hellcat's running 3 seconds a lap slower at Laguna Seca or something. And, oh, it's a boat, it can't dance or whatever. And the M5 is running 3 seconds faster, costs twice as much money from factory. And, oh, it's absolutely amazing. Is 3 seconds that big of a difference? I mean, and here's what I think. All right, Dodge is selling this to a particular market. The people who buy Challengers don't have the money to spend $50,000 for an M5 or an M4 or an M6 or whatever. And they're buying these cars to be drag racing cars. So when Dodge cuts corners, we'll say, to save money on this car, where are they going to do it? Well, people aren't buying these for track cars. So, in my opinion, they're putting, we'll say, less than optimal suspension and brakes and stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, these brakes are great, and it handles really well if you ask me. And if you ask reviewers, they'll say it handles pretty well for a big car. But they could be better. So, if you put just a few $1,000s in it, and you get some good tires, you put on some track quality brakes, and I would say maybe upgrade the sway bars to some Hotchkiss sway bars. I've seen videos, I know you might not believe me, but these things will hustle with a Z06, a C7 Z06, and no one would argue that a C7 Z06 is not a good track car. So that's where I stand with this car. I'm going to put some tires on it. I'm going to put some brakes on it, and I might upgrade the sway bars eventually. But then I'm taking this thing to the track, and we're going to hustle it, and we're going to see what we can do. I fully believe that it's going to impress a lot of people and maybe change some minds out there. So anywho, that's the whole deal on why I bought the car and all about it. And hope to see you next time.